Mr. Iannucci, would you like to give us the elevator pitch?
The elevator pitch. It's a mechanism that can take you without using stairs either up to the top of the building or down. A variety of doors and the ways of going in. You could have a kind of concertina type gate thing that you can clank open. Or more commonly, there's just the sliding doors that part from the middle. That's it. 2 hours long. It's an unbelievable ride.
And that's right.
Excellent. Right. I so admire you for doing that.
So good.
It's about anxiety. Although it's written in Victorian times, it speaks to the modern condition, which is why it was so appealing. So it's a film about someone who spends most of his life worrying if he fits in, and then works out how to. I could only think of Dev playing David. I didn't have anyone else on my list, so I got in touch with him when I knew that it was the film I was going to make next. First person I spoke to was Dev, and I said, look, you're David Copperfield. And I'm glad he said yes, because there really wasn't a plan B.
You went to this meeting hoping to hear more about sawing people in half, but it was a different David Copperfield. Can you walk us through how that went down?
Yeah, I totally skipped this classic growing up, so I didn't know anything about it. And then I sat with Armando, and then he laid out this incredible story, and his vision for it was he was so funny, and he was like a child in the meeting. Like, he was such a big fan of this book, and I kind of hadn't read the script and said yes already at that point, because I was just so eager to work with Armando. I totally trusted him. I really related to David. I relate to someone, trying to find themselves, and there's the general awkwardness to him that I can strongly key into. But it's a coming of age story about identity and about accepting your past and embracing where you came from, and that in turns for David is where his biggest success lies. And for me, it's for any young person, I think, growing up in life, trying to figure out who you are, and you're constantly shifting looks and styles around different people, and that's David's life story. He's constantly trying to overcome these great adversities, and he couldn't have done it without the amazing people around him. And that's the story's strength, is it's about acknowledging the people that got you there and trying to bring them along with you in success.
Well, one of those amazing people is Hugh Laurie. It's one thing to be able to say lines, from Dickens, but also from Armando Iannucci. It's not the easiest thing for an actor either, but what was the most challenging part for you?
Doing it justice. Doing him justice, justifying the man's faith. Playing a character who is one of the earliest, I think, you would agree, one of the earliest representations of mental illness has afflicted this character. And this was not a good time to suffer from mental illness. It probably never is, but that was certainly a pretty rough time. And this was a character who finds a kind of peace and joy through his relationship with David, and particularly his relationship with Betsy Trotwood, who sort of rescues him from the big institutional machine, which would have been his fate if he'd been on his own.
Can I ask you quickly, just because it's so important, the colorblind casting? Why was that so important to you? And
well, it shouldn't be important, and it should. I think by the time you watch the film, it should be entirely irrelevant. I just wanted to cast the best people for the part, and I also wanted the film to speak to now. For the people in the film, even though it's in 1840, for those characters, that's today. That's their present day. And I wanted the audience to feel that you're watching people living in their present day. And therefore, we wanted to avoid all the mannerisms of how people behave when they put costumes and bonnets and big wide dresses on, and the stiffness of that. But it was also to do with the fact I wanted to be reflective of. And also the theme of it is all about, am I fitting in? Background. In the book, it's all about status in society, and will rich people get on with poor people? Will David try and hide his past when he kind of befriends people from a different social circle? And so it's always about people being questioned and then realizing that that's all irrelevant. And also, I thought, why can't I draw from 100% of the acting community for these roles? You know, why should there be a limit?